Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Derek Aldred? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, including the timeline of the crimes, then offer my analysis. Derek Aldred was born sometime around 1970. He was active for many years as a con artist who primarily targeted women by approaching them as a romantic interest. He used a variety of aliases and committed a number of offenses over the course of several years. Derek attended the University of Minnesota from 1991 to 1993, but dropped out. He would later claim that he had a degree in molecular biology from that school. He had a few jobs, including working at a car dealership and driving a tow truck. In 2005, Derek pretended to be a firefighter in California and visited several pharmacies and emergency rooms in order to obtain drugs. He avoided paying for any of the drugs, which were valued at over $200,000. An investigation revealed that he had visited hospitals in 5 counties in California using 38 aliases, 8 different dates of birth, and 13 social security numbers. He was arrested in connection with these crimes and eventually pleaded guilty to 6 felonies. He was released from jail in December 2009. In 2010, Derek met an elementary school teacher named Tracy in Sacramento. He said that he was a college graduate and investment banker. The couple married in the spring of 2011. They lost their house due to foreclosure, and the relationship ended. In February of 2013, Derek was successfully sued by a childhood friend after she loaned him $125,000 to start a company that did not exist. In August 2013, Derek started dating a social media strategist named Wendy. She became suspicious not long after meeting him. Around this same time, Derek dated a woman named Cindy who lived in San Francisco. He defrauded her for hundreds of thousands of dollars after staying in her house for a while. Derek pretended that he was some type of businessman who built a hotel and was in the process of building another one. In November 2014, Derek ran up thousands of dollars of fraudulent charges at luxury hotels. In August of that same year, he was dating a woman named Joanne, who was a schoolteacher in Minneapolis. He claimed to be an international banking attorney with a large downtown firm. He managed to run up $23,000 on her credit cards in the 3 months they were together. In the spring of 2016, he dated a former flight attendant named Missy. He had another victim in the same area named Linda. She was a nuclear scientist. Derek dated an IT executive named Kimberly. He said his name was Rich Peterson, a professor volunteering at a homeless shelter. Derek scammed her out of $8,000 worth of jewelry and took her passport and birth certificate. As it turns out, Derek was a resident at the homeless shelter as opposed to a volunteer. So I guess by his logic, he was just volunteering in jail when he was there years earlier. In September of 2016, Derek was arrested in Texas for an old DUI charge. After being released, he was arrested again when he pawned jewelry. He was pretending to be a Navy SEAL as he did this. He made bail, and in January 2017 was in Las Vegas. He ran up over $12,000 in charges at a hotel and departed the area in April. In May of 2017, he found a new girlfriend in Texas named Dory. He said he was a U.S. Navy pilot. Before Dory realized that he had scammed her for $17,000, she looked at his iPad and saw that he had posted on Instagram using a different name. Dory broke up with him. Derek met a healthcare worker named Tracy. He said he was a semi-retired political science professor. Tracy broke up with Derek, but the authorities contacted her and asked her if she could reunite with him so they could locate him. Tracy cooperated with the authorities, which led them to Derek. He was arrested without incident at a hospital. On December 21, 2017, Derek pleaded guilty to 2 counts of identity theft and 1 count of mail fraud. He was sentenced to 24 years in prison, which was the maximum. He is eligible for release on May 14, 2038, at the age of 67. This isn't really a big deal for Derek. After all, he's not really in prison He's just volunteering. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few items that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Derek Aldred was a very active con artist. He illegally obtained at least $2 million from about 25 victims. He targeted victims across at least 5 states: California, Minnesota, Nevada, Hawaii, and Texas. He often used money he was stealing from one victim to buy gifts for another. He was often extremely generous in the beginning of the relationships, while simultaneously stealing email passwords and accessing various financial accounts. Item number 2. Throughout his career as a con man, Derek used a number of aliases. He claimed that he had so many that keeping them all straight was overwhelming. He used many versions of his real name, like instead of Derek Aldred, one of his aliases was Derek Aldred. He also used completely different names, like Richard Taylor and Rich Peterson. Derek understood the power of impersonating certain high-level or high-status occupations. Here are just some of the occupations that he pretended to have: student pursuing a PhD in political science, university professor, U.S. Navy pilot, U.S. Navy SEAL, Department of Defense analyst, air marshal, investment banker, international banking attorney, defense attorney, decorated veteran, and firefighter. On several occasions, he was able to defraud places out of money by telling people that he had one of these occupations. Derek also had fake uniforms, ID cards, badges, awards, and other documentation for many of his military impersonations. He had a fake Purple Heart, Silver Star, SEAL Team membership, and underwater demolition certificate, which brings me to item number 3. Was Derek guilty of violating the Stolen Valor Act of 2013? The Stolen Valor Act makes it a federal crime to falsely claim to be the recipient of certain military decorations, including the Silver Star and the Purple Heart, 2 decorations that Derek claimed that he had. It's only a crime if the individual has the intent to obtain money, property, or other tangible benefit. The authorities looked into charging Derek for stolen valor, but ultimately decided against it because the maximum penalty is just 1 year in prison. It's a difficult case to prosecute because the government would have to show that Derek was using one of those 2 specific decorations for some type of gain. Technically, I don't think that Derek actually did that. The Stolen Valor Act is an interesting idea, but it's a very difficult law to enforce. The first Stolen Valor Act, which was in 2005, was actually struck down for violating the free speech clause of the First Amendment. Item number 4. Derek was extremely intelligent, articulate, charismatic, and convincing. His level of confidence when speaking was impressively elevated. His credibility was aided by that generous behavior that I mentioned. Using stolen money, he purchased items for his victims like expensive vacations, dinners at fancy restaurants, flower bouquets, a boat, and a country club membership. When he took a victim on a date, he always insisted on paying. Derek used a clever trick involving airports in order to appear important. He would have a victim drop him off at the airport as if he was taking some flight for official government business or something like that. He would then walk from the departure terminal to the arrival terminal and have another victim pick him up, as if he just flew back from important business. Airline flights are expensive, so this built his credibility significantly. It didn't occur to many of his victims that Derek wasn't actually flying. Another tactic Derek used for building and maintaining credibility was having discussions with various people on the phone in front of his victims. They reported he had long conversations with an admiral, a faculty supervisor, and a daughter he referred to as Sarah. Derek actually does have a daughter, but her name is not Sarah, and they are estranged. The victims reported that when Derek was speaking on the phone, he was actually talking to a person. They could hear a voice through the phone. It's not clear if there was more than one person or who they were. Item number 5. Derek appeared to go to the hospital frequently. He may have been drug-seeking as he was earlier in his life. He often told his victims that he had various types of injuries, like he was in a motor vehicle collision or had been wounded in combat. He claimed to be plagued by lingering medical problems. In Derek's line of work, he needed to disappear for hours or days at a time to maintain multiple relationships simultaneously. he used his alleged injuries to explain these mysterious absences. Some victims said that Derek always had some type of disaster going on in the background. There was always drama. Item number 6. Derek had a specific victim profile. He primarily targeted women in their 40s or 50s who were divorced, had children, or had pets. Many of the women were going through a difficult transition in their lives when they connected with Derek. For example, they might have been recently divorced or separated, they may have had financial problems, or they may have been lonely. Derek positioned himself not only as having a great career, but as being naive with romantic relationships. He would tell his victims that he had not been with a woman in many years. Derek presented as if he was financially stable, and some of the women thought that if they were with him, they would not have to work, or even if they did continue working, they would be able to live a life of luxury. Many of the women believed that Derek was the one. He was their knight in shining armor. Moving to item number 7, what about Derek's personality? Derek appeared to have characteristics of both narcissism and psychopathy. From narcissism, he had a sense of entitlement, a lack of empathy, and was manipulative. From psychopathy, he was fearless, irresponsible, possessed superficial charm, lied frequently, had a parasitic lifestyle, a history of criminal behavior, and no remorse. Derek did not take responsibility for his behavior, which is also a characteristic of psychopathy. During an interview from prison, Derek told a reporter that he was an absolutely horrible boyfriend, but it was exaggerating to say he destroyed somebody's life. This brings me to the final item, number 8. Is there any way that potential victims can spot a con artist like Derek Aldred? Even though Derek was quite sophisticated and a very effective criminal, there were a few clues that he was a con artist. A few examples: Derek pushed the romantic relationships along more quickly than expected. He talked about long-term goals within a few weeks, including how he wanted to get married and have children. Derek had a shallow affect. He was both charismatic and socially awkward, as if he developed his style of communicating without actually having true insight. He was just mimicking other people that he had seen communicating in various circumstances. So it's almost like he developed his expressions from simply watching other behavior without truly understanding why people use that behavior. Derek frequently supplied dramatic excuses for missing engagements and disappearing for a long time. Derek made claims that were just about impossible to believe, like he told one victim that he had to fly to the Pentagon because they needed his advice about North Korea. Generally, people look for romantic partners who are comparable in terms of career achievements, attractiveness, and financial resources. Many of his victims were comparable across these dimensions, but for a few of them, there was a disparity in some areas. Based strictly on the market forces of dating, it seemed unusual that Derek would select a partner who was at a lower level. I think Derek really tapped into the need for some of his victims to feel good about themselves. The fact that he selected them made them feel like they were more desirable than market forces would dictate. Some of the victims mentioned how they liked showing Derek off to their friends. Derek was able to manipulate his victims by helping them to deceive themselves. Whatever narcissistic characteristics his victims may have had, Derek was able to find those and amplify them. That's something he understood. He did have some insight in that area. I think that a few of Derek's victims really needed to believe that Derek was the real deal. They needed to believe that he was going to offer them a life of luxury and stability. Like all con artists, Derek knew the importance of emotions. He knew that they would suspend disbelief about his unusual and inconsistent presentation in order to keep the fantasy alive. Those are my thoughts in the case of Derek Aldred. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be as intriguing as the volunteer prison program. Thanks for watching.